Hi, third grade friends. My name is Mrs. Livingston, and I'm a teacher at Eastover Elementary. And April is Poetry Month. What a great time to teach you a little bit about poetry. Poetry is a piece of writing written by an author who's called a poet. And reading poetry is a lot different than reading a chapter book. Chapter books have a character, different chapters, a plot, a setting, and they're great. They're wonderful stories to share and tell and learn from, but poems are much, much different. Poems are written and they have rhyme in them and they have a rhythm to them. So it's almost like a song. It has kind of a beat, like a song. Reading poems brings out feelings and emotions. It is really one of my favorite types of writing. Okay, we now know that poems have a rhythm to them. Some of them have a rhyme, but some of them don't. If you have a free verse, maybe there is no rhyme, but many poems do have a rhyme. But they definitely have a certain kind of beat, and they definitely bring out this feeling or emotions that you may have, or they help you see a part of the world in a different way that you wouldn't normally see it. And when writing poems, poets use these stylistic devices. So that sounds so cool, doesn't it? It kind of like makes the writing, it dresses it up. It's kind of like wearing a very fancy scarf to a party. But you don't want to overdo the device or you'll look a little like me right now, drowning in a fancy scarf. But you can definitely dress up your writing so your poem comes to life. I'm going to share with you today 3 stylistic devices that I love. One is called alliteration. I mean, come on, say that. That's the best word ever. I'm kind of a word freak. The second is called onomatopoeia. That tops alliteration. And the third one is imagery. Who doesn't like to say all those words? And alliteration is when the consonant sounds are repeated at the beginning of the word. So it would be like the silly Sally saunters to the store. I'm sure you could make up something better than that, but I'm on the fly. Or how about this one? Maybe your mom or dad said this to you. Come and clean the chaos in your closet. See, that's an alliteration. The first consonant is repeated in each word. The second stylistic device I'm going to show you today is called onomatopoeia. Say that 3 times. Isn't that just a glorious word? Oh. And it's when a word's pronunciation imitates its sound, like clap. Clap sounds like, it almost sounds the same. Clash, clatter, click. You'll often see that in poems. And imagery, our third one, is when you use your 5 senses to explain something and it creates this mental image in your mind. I went to college for English literature, and one of my favorite poets is Wordsworth. And this is a poem he wrote. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over valleys and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. That creates an image, and it's using your sight because the daffodils are fluttering and dancing. So it makes you think that you can kind of see those flowers dancing in the wind. Okay, I could go on and on. I love to talk about poetry. It's like my favorite lessons of the year. And I don't know, I don't think you have all day. So let's read a poem that incorporates all of it. And at the end of reading this poem, I will tell you how it makes me feel, because we know poetry brings out feelings and emotions. And I will talk about the kind of stylistic devices maybe you spotted in a poem that I read. You ready? This is a book called Beastly Banquet. Any of you who know me knows that I love to cook and I love very interesting food. I lived in Korea, I lived in Japan, I've traveled all over Europe and Asia, and I always like to eat very different types of food. And I love animals. And so the combination of this book, Beastly Banquet, are all poems about animals. They are written by Peggy Munsterberg and pictures by Tracy Gallup. And I use these stickies. Sometimes I put these stickies in books when I find kind of my favorite poems or favorite pages in a book. This one is called Crocodile Bird. Now listen for any kind of rhyme or rhythm which makes a poem, or an alliteration, which repeats the consonant sounds at the beginning of the word, maybe some imagery, maybe some onomatopoeia. Crocodile bird. There's a little bird that lives by the Nile, and she gets her food from the crocodile. For the beast likes to bask on the sandy shores, and the bird hops in when it opens its jaws. And there in its mouth, as bold as a thief, she pecks up food from beneath its teeth. Then out she hops, that bird of the Nile, and runs to another crocodile. Did you notice when they said, I think they used the B, for the beast likes to bask. The BB is the alliteration. On the sandy shores, it's using the S. This is such a cool poem too, because the imagery, you can really see her and you can almost feel the sand beneath her little feet when she jumps then into the teeth of the crocodile. Love that poem. Here's another one. This one is called, and see if you can hear the sense of sound, Blue Whale. The whale is as big as a 2-ton truck, and he's just as fat as a blimp. But all he eats are tiny things about the size of a shrimp. Thousands and thousands every day, enough to fill a boat, straining them out of the salt sea brine and slurping them down his throat. I love this book because you could tell the author did some research on an animal and then she wrote the poem and she used all these stylistic devices. This one is just cool. I'm going to show you this because my children memorized it. This book is from 1997 and I had all my kids memorize poems because I'm a little bit freaky like that. And they loved this one. Goldfish. Fish in a fishbowl's always get food that's soaking, soppy, wet, floating down, drifting by, like snowflakes falling from the sky. Let's write poems together.